Hello, and welcome to another episode of Navigating Cancer Together. I am your host, Talaya Dendy. Navigating Cancer Together is the show that has something for everyone facing cancer. Why? Because everyone is different with different needs, beliefs, and perspectives. Thank you for joining us for this episode. I encourage you to open your minds and your hearts. Navigating Cancer Together is everywhere. Make sure to subscribe and follow the show to stay updated on our latest episodes. You can listen and tune in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or your preferred podcast app or platform. Today, our very special guest is Annamaria Scaccia. Annamaria Scaccia is a poet, essayist, visual artist, and award-winning journalist who has survived both kidney and thyroid cancer by the age of 40. She uses her experiences to support fellow survivors through education and advocacy, bridging science and survivorship. Annamaria also hosts Kidney Cancer Unfiltered, a podcast from the Kidney Cancer Association, and that podcast shares survivor stories and expert insights to help patients and their families feel more empowered. Outside of work, Annamaria is a one-kidney bodybuilder and coffee snob, and she's also someone who doesn't turn down a good loaf of bread. Annamaria is originally from Brooklyn, and she lives in Austin with her son and her partner and their 4 pets. Annamaria, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you back here with me again. We've had several wonderful conversations. I know you have a lot of great information to share. So, welcome, Annamaria.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be back.
My pleasure. Annamaria, before we dive into our conversation, I'd love for our valued listeners to get to know more about you. So, tell them what's something interesting about yourself that may surprise them.
I don't know if this will surprise people, but it's one fact I always like to share because I consider it my origin story, if you will. So, for older millennials, you may remember the show Romper Room. It was like a kids show on PBS. And so my older sister and I one time were kids on that show because they brought like kids from the neighborhood and whatever onto the show to be the audience and to be involved. I ended up getting kicked off because I was too rambunctious. I was just looking into things. I'm a very curious person. So as a little tiny child, I was like looking into drawers and into doors and just wandering around. It was undiagnosed ADHD, but I would probably still do that on medication anyway. I already do. But I like to share that because I think it's a funny fact and it's also me in a nutshell. I did worry I didn't remember it correctly. So 2 years ago, I saw my sister had a button from Romper Room and I was like, okay, this is what I remember. Am I wrong? She's, oh no, they kicked you off. Like they did. Like you were too much. I'm like, okay, I'm just proud I remembered something correctly. So yeah, I'd say that is a look into Anna Maria.
Thank you for sharing that, Annamaria. What brings you joy and lights you up?
My son. I know it's so cliche to say, right? If I were to speak as outside of parenting, like I love bodybuilding, right? That makes me happy. I'm a trained painter, so painting it like brings me a lot of calm, and so I love painting. I love writing, poetry and prose brings me a lot of joy, and just art in general, reading brings me joy. Like sitting in a cafe amongst people, not talking to anyone, just reading. That brings me so much joy. Outside of all of that, my son, like just hearing my son laugh, hearing him explore, listening to him just tell me his stories and explain things that he's made up, like from his imagination. He plays this one game that he really loves, and he just started thinking about, ooh, how can I translate this into a board game? This is how, hey, mom, let me like tell you about it. Unfortunately, sometimes I'm a little bit too much of an editor. So I'm like sitting there to a 10-year-old, okay, but what about this? Let's think this logically. So I might have to like sometimes pull back and remember I'm mom. But just hearing him just be passionate about his hobbies and just his laugh is so joyful. It's just so joyful. And I'd say just being around that, I think out of everything brings me the most joy.
I can see it and feel it when you talk about him. That's just beautiful. And I know so many parents out there can relate. And I don't think it's cliche to say that because it's true. That's what brings you joy. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Thank you for letting me share.
Yes. Now, you mentioned also that you are interested in bodybuilding. When did you get involved and how?
So I got involved in bodybuilding about 4 years ago. Before that, I was focused on kickboxing, right? I love kickboxing. I love blood sports. And I only did it as like cardio kickboxing. But about 5 years ago, I started learning it more and getting trained to the point of, oh, maybe I can be in a competition. I always loved strength and stuff, but like my focus was doing kickboxing and not necessarily lifting. But I started getting interested. But then I got kidney cancer in late 2020, or rather, I was diagnosed with it. I was diagnosed with chromosomal renal cell carcinoma, which is a rare form of kidney cancer, and it's a slow growing one. And so I can't say I got cancer because it was probably growing in me about 3 to 5 years before my diagnosis. And I could not compete in kickboxing the way I had wanted to or had planned to. And I know there are people in sports and in that sport who do spar and do compete, but it was this one day, maybe 3 months after my surgery, my radical nephrectomy, I had my left kidney taken out. I went back to my old kickboxing studio and we were sparring and people were concerned, like, hey, Annamaria, what can you do? Blah, 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 and all that stuff. And I was just like, just don't hit my right side. Don't hit it. Don't go for it. That's my remaining kidney. If you do not have protection, like you can really do damage to it. And I had lost one. I don't want to lose the other. But the person I was sparring with, she kept going after my right kidney, just kept going after it. And it was in that moment where I'm like, you know what? It's not if I go into a competition, I can just tell the person, hey, please avoid my right kidney because I only have one and I want to live the rest of my life. It became something that was no longer attainable for me. And maybe it will be now because I know better and I know more and I could do more and I could find a better coach. But at that point, it wasn't. At that point, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do for my fitness? What am I going to do for my health? I have a whole like fitness backstory, but that's going to be way too long for this answer. And the one thing I kept being faced with was, well, you have one kidney, you had kidney cancer, you can't eat a lot of protein. You basically need to eat only 60 grams, which is not even enough for someone who doesn't have an active lifestyle. Just soapbox aside, our guidelines need to be updated like terribly. But for me, it's okay, that's not going to work. It's not going to work for you to tell me that I can't eat a lot of protein. I've heard, oh, you shouldn't lift anymore. I've heard a lot of people had gotten that same messaging from their doctor. No, you can't lift anymore. You can't do this. And so for me, it was just like, I need to prove people wrong. That's just the type of person I am. I'm like, I need to just prove them wrong. So I'm like, okay, then let me get into bodybuilding. Let me get into lifting weights. Let me just do that. So yeah, so that's how I got into it. It was just this desire to prove to people that like just because I had one kidney doesn't mean I cannot build up strength, does not mean I cannot compete on a stage. It does not mean I can't do those things. So that's how I got into it.
What have you learned from bodybuilding other than that you can do anything? What lessons has it taught you?
Oh, so I would say it's not necessarily a lesson, but I think it's important. But I think out of all the things I've tried in my life, fitness wise, because before kickboxing, I did like Insanity and P90X and they were fun, but like I just went too hard with those sometimes in my home. I'm going to give you a long-winded answer because I think it gets to a point. When I was doing kickboxing, it started because I moved to Austin about 6 months after my father passed away. And so I was still grieving and I needed something to focus that grief on, right? Like I needed it. And so it was an outlet, but it was an outlet for my anger, but it didn't necessarily like solve that anger or solve that grief. Therapy helped, but it did not come with a resolution that I needed. Bodybuilding, on the other hand, grounded me because there's something very humbling about fighting a 200-pound weight, right? There's something very humbling about not being able to lift something and then being able to do it like a couple of weeks later because you're working on your body and you're building that strength. I think it was the thing that I needed to heal, not just from having kidney cancer, but other trauma in my life. I was in a relationship where I was not allowed to be strong. That was part of the psychological abuse. And so it was something that I've always wanted. Like even when I was a kid, like I was always active. I always enjoyed power, right? Not having power, but feeling powerful, right? And I always admired women who were strong and powerful and took no shit, excuse my language. But for a while, I was scared into not having that. And bodybuilding was this thing that kind of brought it all together, if that makes sense. Where I was in a relationship that was toxic. I was abused as a child. And then I had my body decide that it wanted to fight me. But then here's this thing where I get to put my whole into it. And I get to say, no, you're not going to stop me. Because, okay, 300-pound weight, I can't deadlift you right now, but I will. And I did it once. I'm not in the 300-pound club yet fully because my second cancer threw me back, but I'm in the 200-pound club, right? It's grounded me a lot of ways. And it taught me to focus my energy and to know that I have control over my body. I have no control over my body too, right? I can't control the cancer cells. I can't do any of that. But for now, I can control it. I can control what I do with it. I can control what I put into it. I can control how I choose to use it. And I can tell it that, no, you are not going to stop me. This is not going to be a thing that stops me again. It taught me to have control. It taught me that it's not the same for everyone, right? I firmly believe that bodybuilding is for everybody. Now, I won't get into kind of the politics of different federations and in terms of enhancement drugs and things like that. I'm a natural bodybuilder. I choose to be a natural bodybuilder because of my kidney, not having a thyroid. And I'd rather just be all natural,
Yeah.
which means progress is slower. My body doesn't look the same. I know that I won't compete on certain stages because I know I'll never have the package that those federations will look. And I'm fine with that. I'm not even bitter because I know. And I think that's the other thing that bodybuilding taught me. Strive for what you want. Go
Yes.
after it. Go after it. Put the blood, sweat, and tears into it. But at the same time, it is okay if you do not fit a certain mold, right? And you would think bodybuilding, like that sounds, I think, contradictory to think that bodybuilding is teaching you to not be the same as everybody else. But I think because I've seen so many different people in the sport and I've seen so many people with adaptive needs in the sport, it just reinforced my belief that like lifting is for everyone. And it doesn't matter what type of cancer you had or what type of disease you have or what type of chronic condition you have, you can still do it. And no one, yes, there are going to be gatekeepers, of course, but no one can tell you that you can't do it. No one.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. And it's really meaningful too when you have something that can help you stay grounded in that way. I think we all need something like that because it's so easy to get caught up in all these different things that are going on, what you're supposed to be doing, how you should or shouldn't look, and all these things. So I love how you said, I'm not concerned about fitting into this mold. I'm more concerned about doing what's best for me, and
Yeah.
that's going the healthy route.
Yeah.
And I love that. So that's great.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think what's interesting is that I was on a road to be a coach anyway before the bodybuilding, but who I focus on changed, right? Like I'm exclusively a coach for one kidney clients or people with kidney issues, right? Because there's so much misinformation out there. And I spent years, I am certified as a coach, like in nutrition and corrective exercise and fitness, but I do my research and I put the pieces together and that information isn't out there. But I think that getting into bodybuilding, it's like now I have all of this knowledge about the way everything works together. Granted, not to the degree of someone with an actual degree in physiology or kinesiology or anything like that, but on a practical, applicable level, like I have all this knowledge. And I thank bodybuilding because it's taught me to be happier with my body and to be happier with the decisions and to not care about the number on the scale. Of course, we have residual things, but it's like getting on this journey, I was able to confront a lot of demons, if you will, that I didn't know I had because I had to confront them. You have to be very intentional about your nutrition. You have to be intentional, and I have to be extra intentional because I only have one kidney. And it's given me this kind of like discipline and view into things where I'm like less concerned about how I look than I was prior to even getting into fitness or even while I was in kickboxing. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just all of these things that like bodybuilding teaches you because it does humble you, right? I don't know how many people I've heard say, oh yeah, I can lift that, and they go do it and it's like, no, they can't. It really puts your ego in check, right? It doesn't mean that people don't, but like you in weightlifting, right? In bodybuilding, even powerlifting, like whatever you choose, in weightlifting, in strength training, you cannot have an ego. Like you just can't because that weight, like Henry Rollins wrote this essay and he said this quote that gets, and I have a patch of it that gets used all the time. The iron never lies. 200 pounds is 200 pounds. You can't pick up 200 pounds. You can't pick up 200 pounds. You can pick up 200 pounds. You can pick up 200 pounds. But like that iron is never going to lie. And so you can't have an ego and you have to constantly check it. I have to constantly check my ego because when I can't lift something, I get mad at myself. I'm like, I've been doing this for X amount of years. I should be there. I should be further. But all those things, you're like, okay, now let's take a step back here. Let's really think about it. And I think it's just healed me in that way.
That's really interesting because what I hear you say is self-awareness.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard you say.
Yeah.
Self-awareness is what you've really gotten strong at
Yeah.
while bodybuilding. And that's excellent because
Yeah.
we have to be aware of how we are, what our triggers are, how we move through life, all of those different things, how we impact others. So I think that's a beautiful lesson. And along with all the other things that you've shared, and just being open to confronting yourself and
Yeah.
saying, I can't do this, but I'm willing to keep working until I can. And that's okay.
Yeah. 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 And that is what it gave me. I think that's what I learned from it because I've always been an open person and I've always been a self-aware person. But I think at the same time, I never gave myself the grace I would give other people. And I still have trouble with that, I will say. But having been on this journey for the last 4 years and being a natural bodybuilder, you're not going to see progress right away. Actually, any bodybuilder, you're not going to see progress right away. Like you still have to work for it. But I forgot where I was going with this. I think it's not ignore facing myself. Just couldn't ignore it. And maybe that's partly cancer, but if like in the space of bodybuilding, I could no longer ignore how much my ego drove my actions. And it's not in the way of being uncollaborative or anything like that. It's more of how I treated myself.
Yeah.
I still can improve, but I never treated myself well. I never treated my body well. I never treated who I am as a person. I put myself in positions where I am ashamed. And it's not because I did anything bad, but it was just a life I did not want to ever be in. And I found myself in it because trauma just replayed itself. But once I started bodybuilding and I had to check my ego, like just so many things clicked. And I'm so much more patient, which is not a lot more, but I'm so much more patient. I'm more understanding. I like really truly believe in like making fitness fit for everybody. And I have better strategies for adapting. So going back to the cancer part of it, I think if I was in bodybuilding and I got kidney cancer and then I got thyroid cancer, I'd probably would give up and not care and just say, screw it. I'm not going to go to the gym and I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. It's going to continue that all or nothing mindset because I had an all or nothing mindset prior and at the beginning. But because I was building these consistent habits and because bodybuilding reframed my relationship with myself, not just my body, but with myself, I was able to adapt to my new reality. Because with thyroid cancer, you lose your thyroid, you have to be on daily meds. A lot of people don't realize that your body needs to convert the T4 hormone to T3, which is the active hormone, which is what controls your energy. I only have one kidney, so that conversion doesn't happen the same way, which means my T3 is still low despite being hyperthyroid to suppress cancer cells still in my body. I love cardio. I'm like one of the maybe like one of two bodybuilders that loves cardio. And I would cycle all the time and I would do all these things all the time. But thyroid cancer hit and it was just like all of that energy went out the window. I'm not anywhere near what I was before because I've been on this bodybuilding journey. I learned to meet that challenge. And so what I did was I got a walking pad. I love walking. I want to still keep cardio like for a really long time. I would say until I got on T3 supplements, which really helped with the energy. But for a while, I would look at my Peloton, I would look at my kickboxing bag, and I'd be like, it is too much effort just to turn that on. That's how low my energy was. That I chose to focus on lifting. It's like I can't do both. I need to only focus on one. And I chose to focus on lifting. And I think bodybuilding taught me that's okay. Like you don't have to be all or nothing. It's about consistency and it's about adapting it to what works for you and still seeing as long as you're putting that effort in. That is the key. It's like you're putting the effort in. You're not trying to beat other people, you're trying to beat yourself. And that is absolutely cliche. I will admit the you versus you thing, absolutely cliche, but it is so true.
It's very true.
It is so true because no one cares whether or not I can lift a certain weight. Like, no one cares, right? That is something I'm doing for myself for a lot of reasons. But with thyroid cancer, it's because I built those habits, because I built that discipline. I was like, okay, this is how I can adapt. This is what I need to do. And same thing with nutrition. Before I was diagnosed with kidney cancer, I was not eating. There was a lot of things that were going on in my life. Like my mom got in a near fatal accident. I left my son's father in that relationship. I was in this period of transition. So I just assumed it was stress and depression. Turns out it was cancer. But in that time of not having an appetite, I wasn't still eating well, right? Like I was not eating well whatsoever. And I had all of these ideas about eating that were just wrong. And like eating and weight loss that were just absolutely wrong. Then I got a coach, and this is prior to like diagnosis. I got a coach. I started getting on this journey. I lost a crap ton of weight. Like I lost 120 pounds naturally over 5 years up until the point. So from like 2015 to 2020, I like lost 120 naturally, or yeah, 2021. And a lot of that weight loss happened the later years of that period because I got my nutrition right and I figured it out. Now I track my meals, even though I'm not competing. I've been on a very long off season. I've just been focused on building for myself. I still track diligently. I still meal prep for no reason other than these are tools that help me stay stable. These are tools that help me stay in the zone that I need to be in. Sometimes I'm not perfect, but I've learned that's okay. Because again, it comes down to your overall effort. It would be a different story if I'm in prep, but I'm not in prep. So we're not worried about that. But so I don't know where I was going. I go on tangents. This is just my brain. I go on tangents all the time. But I think that's what bodybuilding gave me, right? That's what it gave me. I don't think I realized that until you asked me this question. I don't think I realized how much bodybuilding has affected all these aspects in my life until you asked this question. Because if I didn't go into lifting, I think I probably would have gave up. I probably would have just been another thing that I can't do. And I would have just fallen back into other habits. But I got that kidney cancer. I'm like, no, I'm going to finally build that muscle. And I've come to a point where I'm so much more, I can't say I'm so much more confident because that's a whole other thing that has nothing to do with bodybuilding. But I can say that I am a lot more assured, if that makes sense. Like I'm a lot more, no,
Period.
you are not like, this is not happening, period. I've always been outspoken, but now I'm like to the point where I'm like, I actually don't care about the consequence. I do not care about the consequence because there is something better and bigger and more meaningful. And I'm not going to let this slide. I always joke with my son, and so I want him, and this might sound bad, but I'm like, he's going to be 12 soon, like in 2 years. I'm getting him into the gym. I want him to have a different relationship with his body than I did as a youth. I want him to build these habits now because it took me until I was in my late 30s to build these habits. I'm 42 now. But I always tell him, like, we're going to do it together because I'm still always going to be more buff than you're going to be taller, but I'm always going to be more buff. You are not going to forget that. Like, that is a thing for me. I don't know. And he always laughs at that. He thinks it's hilarious because he knows he's going to be taller and stronger than me.
Exactly.
I'm just going to be this tiny little buff woman. He's putting his hand on my head and I'm just like swinging at him. But he's 10 now. No, he's 6 inches shorter than me. So I know I definitely do not have any time.
Oh, my
So,
goodness.
yeah,
Wow. They grow so fast, that's for sure.
it's unnecessary. I don't know who told him it was okay. Come on.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Anna Maria, because that gives us more insight into who you are. Well, one thing I would really like to know is, were your cancers related? Was one a primary and a secondary, or are they totally separate?
No, yeah, they're two different primary.
Okay.
So this is an area where we need a lot more research because doctors say they're not related, but they say that because we don't have the research on it. I found one case study where they found like 4 people who both had kidney and thyroid cancer. Since having kidney and thyroid cancer, I've met like 4 to 5 people who had kidney and thyroid cancer. It is really common for something rare. It's really common. So they are two separate things. They were two separate things that were happening at the same time. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer a little under 3 years after kidney, but the cancer I had, papillary thyroid carcinoma, is also slow growing. So they were growing at the same time. It all started because I felt a tumor in my neck. Like it was in my isthmus. I was on my Peloton and it felt like something popped in my neck once and I felt a lump. And I was in, I would say, vague denial for a bit before, but I knew once I felt bigger, like I knew what it was. But there were like 3 or 4 tumors actually in my thyroid. That was the only one that was seen or felt. I personally think that there's a connection, but I think there's so little research being done on not necessarily kidney and thyroid, but just on multiple primaries in general that we don't have much to go on.
Interesting. What was your treatment regimen like? Did you have to do like radiation and chemotherapy?
For the thyroid cancer or
For
for all
either
of them?
one?
So for kidney cancer, it was only surgery because the type of that I had, which is chromophobia cell carcinoma, it doesn't respond to chemotherapy and does not respond well to immunotherapy. So when you're in earlier stages, really your only option is surgery and no additional like preventative anything. It's just surgery. For the thyroid cancer, surgery is always the first line of defense. I had a feeling I still had metastasis in my neck because when they pulled out one lymph node and that had metastasis in it, I had to fight to get heard. And then finally, my endo actually was the savior. And she's like, let's check your numbers. Let's do a whole body scan. We did a whole body scan. We saw that I still had metastasis in my neck. And so I also had to do radioactive iodine a few months after my surgery. 6 months, actually, about 5, 6 months after my surgery. That was my treatment. Things being more active with the thyroid cancer, I'm on a high dose of thyroid medication to suppress cancer cells. And so I'm on them because I need them to function, but I'm also on a high dose to keep cancer from growing.
Has anyone in your family had cancer? Do you have a family history that you know of?
So my older sister had Hodgkin's lymphoma. She had a Hodgkin's lymphoma about, I'd say, 25 years ago, give or take. She's been in remission the entire time. She hasn't had a recurrence, knock on wood. I believe my grandfather had skin cancer at one point, but I think I was too young and it was just something I overheard. So I need to confirm with my mom. Beyond that, there's actually no history of cancer in my family. Diabetes, high cholesterol, all those other things, even thyroid issues. Both my mom and my younger sister are hypothyroid, and they've had nodules, but they've all been benign, luckily. But before my thyroid cancer, I had not been diagnosed with any thyroid issue.
Interesting. It's like you get cancer and it just comes out of thin air sometimes. Not often they're able to tell you why.
Yeah. Yeah, because I did a
Mhm.
whole genetic counseling and there was nothing in there. And I even went back to my oncologist when I got thyroid cancer. I'm like, hey, like, can we? He's like, no, we did a full panel and there's like nothing. But I'll ask my nurses if anything else popped up. And then in November of last year, 2024, I had a colonoscopy and they found a precancerous polyp, colon polyp, and it was serrated and it was like 12 millimeters. So it was pretty like when sizes of polyps go, that's actually sizable. And so I'm at risk for a third primary. And it's like, I get the question of why. And I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea why. If I did not have the colonoscopy when I did, I'd probably have colon cancer in a few years. I don't know why my body is doing this to me, like at all. I don't think it's obesity, right? Like I'm very skeptical of that ever being used as a risk for cancer. I think it's an easy and lazy answer that people get just
Mhm.
because of the changes in birth cohorts. Maybe it's smoking. I was a former smoker. I have not smoked in 11 years, but I was a smoker, right? And so it could be tied to that because we do know smoking can cause kidney cancer as well. So maybe it's tied to that, but I have no idea other than maybe that lifestyle factor. There is no answer as to why my body is doing this.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
tough because you don't, they say take preventative measures, and that's usually like nutrition and different exams and things like that. But sometimes you really just want to understand why things are happening. But then again, sometimes we'll never know, and we have to be okay with that too. One thing that I'm interested in knowing is okay, you've gone through two cancers, and how has that really impacted your outlook on life?
So it's not going to be the most positive thing. If we do go with the positive, I will say it has made me realize that I do not have time to do things that make me unhappy. And if I have to do things that make me unhappy, there are going to be a lot of boundaries. Prior to the first cancer, I was a workaholic and I was doing 60, 70 hours a week. And I'm like, no, I need to do this if I want to keep this job and stuff like that. And then I got cancer. I'm like, screw that. I'm working just 40 hours. Maybe I'll work 45. Maybe I'll work 50. You're not paying me for more than that. I'm highly productive. Like I'm a high performer. I still get stuff done, but it's going to be within that time, right? Because my family is more important. I think it woke me up to realize like what my son needed because he was begging for more quality time with me. But my response will always be like, no, baby, I have to work if we want to keep this job. And then I realized like, I'm gonna have time with him, right? I didn't know where I was at that point. So I think in the positive, it's definitely helped me realign with myself and my purpose. It's made me realize that my values are more important than any materialistic thing. It's more than important than having a house. It's more important than making a lot of money. My values have always been important to me. I'm very like self-righteous in that way. It's like I believe in equality and fairness and like diversity and inclusion. And I've always fought for that. But like I fight for it more now because if there's nothing, like if I have nothing else, I have that. And so I would say it's rooted me more in that advocacy So I'd say those are the positives that have come out of having cancer in terms of my outlook. But I actually just posted an essay about this. At this point, it's going to be a very old essay, but I wrote an essay about time.
Mm.
Since having cancer, I have thought about nothing but dying. And I always had a fear of death and dying. It might be because I was raised Catholic, but I've always just had this fear of it. But it was always in this abstract. And then I got cancer and it became real, right? And I know it was early stage. And so I felt like maybe I could get over it. Maybe it wouldn't be as real. But then I got cancer again. And it's, oh, so it doesn't matter what I do. And what if the next one, I am not so lucky? And I don't try to dwell on that because I shouldn't. But the fact is, my body is telling me, hey, you got multiple cells in there and I'm going to come out anytime, especially now. I know it was just precancerous, right? But I can't even say it was just precancerous because it's like precancerous, fine, maybe it would never have turned into cancer. I really, truly doubt it given my history, right? It's like I have all of these things in my body that's, hey, we're testing your mortality here. And so for me, in the first cancer, it's just all I've thought about is how much time do I have left? And I think about it in terms of my son, right? Because that is the thing where I am like, I need to see him grow up. I need to see him graduate. I need to see him have a family of his own if he wants one. I need to see him change the world. I need to see that. I don't want that taken away from me. And so it's been traumatic because I don't have faith in time anymore. I don't have faith in my future anymore. And it's not that I'm living day to day and in the present, like I just don't know if I'm going to have a future. And all I think about is anytime in the car, I'm like, is this going to be the day I die? Is I'm going to get in an accident? Anytime I get on the plane, oh, is this plane going to crash? Because you don't know, right? Like you don't know when accidents happen. But because I had to be faced with my mortality in a way that most people are not, unless they have some condition that tests it, it's just what's on my mind. And it's just been traumatic. It's traumatic to have to think about this constantly. And I know people will say, don't dwell on it. Think about this. Who's in control? Yada, yada, yada. But it's, yeah, but no. It's not that easy to just sit there and say, hey, turn off the fact that you know you're going to die. We don't think about, as humans, do you really sit there and think that one day you will die? No, we don't typically sit there and think that way. We live a day like we'll always have tomorrow. But then when you have cancer and when you have cancer twice and not a recurrence, two different types of cancer, tomorrow is fake, right? Like the idea of tomorrow is a lie because it's like the way I put it in my essay is you know that you are one scan, one lab, one doctor's visit away of knowing the end is coming. And I think cancer survivors think like that in different ways, right? I think depending on
Mhm.
your prognosis, depending on your type of cancer, there are different levels of this kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And so mine, I think, is more centered around uncertainty than it is certainty, which makes the anxiety a lot higher. Whereas I was having a conversation with someone who was metastatic and she has the same thoughts, but she's a lot more calm because it's
Mhm.
like she knows where she's at. And so there is more calm because it's okay, I know I'm dealing with this. So it's like, how do I manage it? But still, she has those thoughts of how much time do I actually have left? What is it? So I would say I'm not unique in feeling this way.
Mm.
I just don't know if we talk enough about it.
We do not. We don't. And one thing about it is it can be applied to anyone, not to discredit what you're saying,
Yeah.
but we could walk outside and something can happen and boom, that's it for us. And so that's one of the things that kind of helped me to shift from, because I thought about it a lot when I was going through and even after a little bit, but I had decided I really didn't want to spend all my time thinking about the end what could I do with what I have right now? And I know it's different for everyone. And I haven't had two cancers, so I can't say I understand how you feel because I haven't gone through it twice. I know how hard it is going through it once. I can only imagine twice. But I know how much you love your son. If I can share this, think about all the things that you guys can do together right now.
Yeah, and that's stuff I do try to focus on. And I think that it is true. And something can happen where the end comes before we know it. But I think that is what I'm experiencing, right? Is that I can't turn that knowledge off.
Yeah.
I can't enter a car without thinking of that possibility. I can't go on a plane without thinking of that possibility. And that a lot might be driven by the fact that I have anxiety. So I know like they're
Of
the
course.
thoughts that I have to like work through, but I would say like that's one thing that not until recently I did not have the words for that has really changed for me since having cancer. It's just you can't turn off the knowledge that you will die. And
Mhm.
it's hard. So I think that's the thing that I have to heal, right? Because I'm not saying that, hey, everyone dwell on the fact that time is finite. I'm definitely not saying that. I think that is an impact that it's had, right? That is an impact cancer has had in terms of my outlook on life.
And
And
that's valid.
my partner told me a year or so ago, I asked him, like, what is something that you've seen change in me? And he's like, you don't have that joy anymore. There was a joy that you had that you don't have anymore. And I think that's all tied to that, right? And so it's really trying to figure out how do I reconcile this and how do I get over it? And I don't have that answer right now.
That's
I,
okay.
yeah, I'm trying to be more present. I'm trying to have as many moments with my son as possible. But every time I see him and he grows, and it's like there's more time gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that.
It's hard. It's really hard because it's like your life has been attacked, so to speak, and there's only so much you can do about it. If someone's attacking you, you can essentially fight back in a sense. But with cancer, it's like you're being attacked, and there's only so much you can do. You know what I mean? You can control how you eat, you can control how you think, and those kind of things. But sometimes it's going to do what it's going to do,
Exactly.
regardless of what you do. So, to a certain degree, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I do think that there are varying degrees of this, right? It
Yeah.
all depends on your outlook. I think for me, talking about it out loud, because the essay that I wrote was the first time that I put words to what I've been experiencing. I've kept it mostly to myself in terms of this obsession with this, with time. And then, like, it's a panic, right? I described it as a tension between gratitude and panic because I'm happy to be alive, but I'm afraid of how much time I have left because I don't know. So that you have all the time in the world, but you have no time at all. And it's just, again, having that knowledge where it's like you cannot. It's like Westworld. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but it's like Westworld. It's about robots who were like in like this amusement park and like these scenarios and stuff, but then they end up becoming self-aware and that you can't turn off the fact that you're a robot. It's the same thing. And I
Mhm.
think because I don't have control over what's happening on my body and I also have that uncertainty, I think that's what drives a lot of this fear.
Yeah.
And I know it's not healthy. Like it's not something I'm advocating for people feeling. Like I know it's not healthy to have this obsession and to be so focused on this. So it's stuff I have to do with healing. But I would say that if we're talking about, okay, how has cancer changed your outlook on life? I'd say the two, like, kind of maybe polar opposites, but like on the scales is just my purpose and my values are more important than anything else. And that I will
Mhm.
fight hard for those things. But also, I can't stop thinking about that. That's just where I'm at.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like you
Yeah.
said, that's part of the healing process. You just have to start where you are and
Yeah.
just figure it out along the way. There is no manual on being a cancer patient or survivor. I mean,
Not at
people
all.
can say all these things that you should and shouldn't do. And how you should and shouldn't feel or what, but it's different for everyone. And that's your truth. That's your story. And it's valid.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. You mentioned your partner. How has cancer impacted your relationships and your family life?
It's funny. This last year, I've been doing a lot of, again, another long-winded answer. But before this year, I was really focused on being this representation for the one kidney community and like in terms of like fitness and stuff. And I focused a lot of my advocacy outward and being like this example that I haven't done the healing I needed to do. So if I'm thinking about it, I'm really just starting my healing this year. And so a lot of that, I refocus it into art and creativity because that's just my background as a writer and a painter and like creative writing and stuff like that. And so I've been focusing a lot. And I say that to say I've been writing a lot for Elephant and Tea magazine. And so I had written an essay on, and I don't know if it'll be out by the time this episode is out, but I wrote an essay on how cancer has changed relationships. So that's why I was bringing it up because I focused on how it changed my relationship with my partner. I described cancer as like this black hole, right? And once you get a diagnosis, you've passed the event horizon, right? Like you passed it. And that happened to us twice. We've been together going on 7 years. 5 of those years was spent in cancer. Like 5 of those years was spent in this black hole, right? And so we didn't even get to establish a before, right? Because the 2 years we were together, we didn't really live with each other. We moved in with each other maybe 6 to 8 months before I got my diagnosis, right? So we were in a spot, and he'll admit to this too, like we were not in a good spot at that point. Like we were unhappy and trying to figure out what the cohabitation looked like for both of us, trying to establish our needs and our boundaries. And then cancer hit. And it's just, okay, so how do we exist in this way? And it's our relationship it's been me, him, my son, and cancer, right? That's what life has been. And it's the way I put it in the essay. He hasn't been to every single one, right? And I start the essay like going on about all the numbers, right? Like how my life has been a numbers game since 2020. And like all these, like I think 62 is the number of the last 4 years of like doctor's appointments, labs, like all that stuff that you have to do. So while he wasn't in every single one, he's been impacted by it in some way. And we have different views on how we treat things sometimes. So for him, he cannot understand cancer the way I understand cancer. I can say I understand cancer as a caregiver too, because I was partly taking care of my sister along with my mom's when she had cancer. So I can understand from a caregiver perspective. But this is not something, he had a friend who passed away from cancer when he was a young adult. But like beyond that, right? Like this is this absolutely new experience for him. And I think it made us a lot more patient and understanding. And it took time, I would say, because the first time we were not on the same page. To answer this question, I host the Kidney Cancer Association's Kidney Cancer Unfiltered podcast. And on season 3, we ended it in conversation with me and my family. And my partner and I and my son had a really like important heart to heart. And my partner admitted like the first time around, he had a certain view of how you deal with things because he himself has a disability that he's lived with his entire life. And I was not responding to my cancer that way. And it was like these expectations that were just not aligning. And so the first time around, there was just a lot of tension. But like working through that the second time around, it was just so much better. We've become so much more understanding of each other, so much more patient with each other. At least I hope we have. It seems like it. And I think it's once you go through one cancer alone, but like two, it's one of those, okay, we're in this, right? Like we're here. But the thing that I did write about that I did write in the essay, and it's the way I've changed, and it's something I need to work on, is that I feel like a burden with all my health things. And I know a lot of people feel this way, especially in relationships. And so I know that he wants to be the person that I like break down with and be my safe space. But me being me, I'm just like, no, I can take care of myself. Oh no, I have this symptom. I check my urine all the time, any ache and pain. Like you probably do too. Like anything that we feel
Yeah.
like cause for like really deep inspection. And so he'll
Yes.
see me do that and he'll want to know what's going on. I'll be like, oh no, don't worry about it. It's just this thing. Or I'll feel pain and be like, oh, don't worry about it. And I could see that it upsets him that I'm not turning to him. And he can tell me all day long that I'm not a burden, but I still feel like it because it's like we have been consumed so
Mhm.
much by my health that it's just like how do you not feel like that? So I'd say that is a change too. It's I probably am not as like what's the word? Dependent on him, if you
Mm.
will, as
Sure.
maybe one would be in a relationship. Like I become more fiercely independent because no, I cannot put this on you.
Yes, I get it.
Yeah. Before I talk about my son, I will say, in terms of other family members, it actually brought my sister back and I back together. We weren't speaking for 5 years because we had a falling out after my father, or 4 years after my father passed away, and we did not speak to each other. And then my mom, being my mom, told her that I had a lump, and she got in touch with me, a mass on my kidney, and she got in touch with me, and we've reconnected. She was and still is like a really strong source of support, and she's the one who really made me understand that gratitude and fear and gratitude and anger do not have to exist separately.
Mm.
She's taught me like it's okay. The way she puts it is like you're in a club that you've never wanted to be in and you can't get out.
Exactly.
And it's okay to be angry over that, but it's also okay to feel gratitude and it's okay to feel those things at the same time. And so I'd say like
Exactly.
it brought me closer to her. Cancer survivors understand and patients
Hmm.
understand each other in a way
Yeah.
that does not have to be spoken.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would say with my son, and I think that's part of it. It's going back to the time thing. I want as much time with him as I can get. Because I didn't mention, but I do co-parent. And so he goes with his father every other week. And so I lose time with him. And so for me, it's just he's even more, he's always been my buddy.
Mhm.
He's my only one. And he's the one that like I've always had on my side, but like he's become more of my buddy. And I know that there's letting go that I need to do. And I'm working on it.
Takes
But
time.
it takes time. So I think he and I have grown closer together. I think for him, the fear that he still has is that he does not know how much time he has with me.
Yeah.
And so he's always been clingy, but he's even more clingy now. And I don't think he even realizes it. He still follows me room to room. And he gets worried if I'm not in the room. And I had his thyroid labs checked recently, his levels checked recently, because it's time of year. He turned 10. And like the first thing he said to his doctor is, oh no, I don't want surgery. And for him, like he's associating these things with what happened to me. And
Yeah.
he's all mostly over it. I'm like, baby, no, like you're not. And this is why you're not. And that's okay. I don't tell him there's anything wrong. I'm like, the thing here is that you've been impacted a certain way that like we need to address, right? Like he goes to therapy every other week, not just for dealing with my cancer. I wanted to know therapy's okay. I think we're both feeling this like desperation to make sure we have each other for as long as we can have each other.
I
And so I
get
think
it.
that's brought us that we're not codependent. I'm not like one of those moms, but we're each other's buddies. It's a bond that had been strengthened by like a trauma, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that because everything that you've talked about today are things that people really don't talk about. And it's so sad because there's so many people out there that are going through cancer diagnoses like we have, and they're sitting there feeling inadequate or something's wrong or like all these different things. And there's so much that comes from this that no one talks about. And a lot of times we don't have answers for. We're
Yeah.
doing the best that we can with what we do know. And it's an ongoing healing process because cancer comes in and it just changes everything. You can
Yes.
think you had it all figured out, and boom, here comes cancer. It's knocking over everything that you thought you had in place, you felt like you had in place. And then once you get through treatment or whatever that looks like for you, you're left to try to figure out how to piece it back together or figure out how you want to rearrange it or whatever. And it's a lot.
It
It is
is.
a lot. And sometimes there's things going on that you don't even realize are happening.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we unfortunately live in this society where there's a lot of toxic positivity and focus on resilience.
Mm.
And it's not to say that we shouldn't be resilient, but in order for us to be resilient, we need to address the cracks, right? A pipe is not going to continue to be strong if it has this crack that keeps getting bigger. And so I think it's the same thing for people going through trauma or any challenging, difficult situation. It's you need to be able to talk about these things, to process these things, to heal, to close that like crack, to patch it up. You can't sit there and ignore it and pretend you're okay because then one day you're going to snap and explode, right? Like it's just going to go all over the place. But we do live in the societies where it's like, nope, you got to put your head down, you got to get through it, you got to be strong, you can't show emotion, you can't show this. And it's like, no, there's a difference between dwelling on something and not moving on and being able to express yourself with what you're doing, but also having a plan to manage it and to deal with it.
Yes. And you said something very key. You have to be able to express yourself to move on. Like
Exactly.
you have to have that space because a lot of people get stuck because they feel like they can't express themselves. They will be judged if they express themselves. And so I think it's a must that
It
we
is.
express ourselves so that we can move on. They're interconnected, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Like you can't move on. I read The Whole Brain Child like years ago, and there's like the whole chapter on name it to tame it. And that's just the thing I return to. It's if you ignore an emotion in a child, they're going to continue dwelling on that emotion. But if you talk to them about what they're feeling, then they have an understanding of it and they can start taming it. And they can start being like, okay, what do I need to do to tame this emotion? Because if you don't talk about it, then you don't know the emotions you're dealing with, right? Like it was, like I said, it wasn't until I wrote that essay about time that I really understood what I was dwelling on. And now that I understand that I'm what I'm dwelling on, I'm not going to say it tomorrow, I'll stop thinking about it, but I can start refocusing my energy on living either for today or making sure I have those moments I want with my son and not getting bogged down by like obligations that are like trivial and arbitrary. But we need to talk about the whole of the experience, right? I contain multitudes, that famous quote, we contain multitudes. We're not just this one thing. And saying that, hey, I'm miserable right now, or hey, it was traumatic, or something, or saying something negative doesn't mean we're advocating for that negativity. It just means, hey, this is a very honest emotion I'm experiencing. I think I've proven to people that I'm resilient. I
Mhm.
don't think I need to say that I'm resilient to prove it, right? Like we can't be performative with cancer. Like it's not, we're not going to get far as a community if we're performative with the experiences of it, right?
Yeah. And you said negative emotion. I would flip it and say true emotion.
Yeah,
It's a true emotion. It's not negative or positive. It's the truth.
yeah, yeah. I went to ASCO and that was something that came up. It's like, how do we get more stage one patients involved in advocacy? And it's, I think one of the things I said as someone who was stage one twice is that for me, I understand the connection between what I am doing and what we need, right? Like,
Mhm.
I know that advocating, one, I want to see my stage four friends live. Like, it's a 17% average chance of survival, like 5-year survival rate for kidney cancer patients, right? I want to see my stage four friends live, right? But I also do know, and that's like maybe short term if you think about it, right? But longer term, I know that whatever we do research wise for that treatment to treat metastatic will ripple down, will
Yeah.
come down, and it will impact all stages. And maybe we'll get to a point where we don't need to lose our kidney. We can just kill the tumor. I understand that, but I don't think a lot of early stage patients understand that connection because I think a lot of the time they're treated in this way of it was caught early, you had this, you're fine.
Mhm.
And they either internalize that or they shut down whatever they're feeling and they don't feel like they have a space to be in advocacy because they didn't have it quote unquote worse or didn't go through chemo or this or that. There's some like goalpost that they're
Mhm.
faced with. I was saying this to say, I think if we have more of these like honest kind of discussions about what cancer looks like for everybody, I think we can get more people involved
Yeah.
and we could get more people from different stages involved. And it doesn't have to be as siloed as it is, but we have to make space for the whole of the experience that presents itself. And we have to make sure people know that is okay to feel these things. Because then once again, once you name it, you can tame it.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Cancer's cancer. I don't care if you caught it early or late, it's still cancer. It's still hard. It's still traumatic. It's still life threatening. It's still all these things, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Going back to early stages, I understand that there are different things between like early and later stages. And I
Yeah.
don't want to compare the
Mm-mm.
experiences in a way that devalues or dismisses the state, like the late stage experience. That is not definitely not what I'm talking about. But I do agree cancer is cancer and cancer is hard no matter what stage you're at. But I do think the messages of you have to be resilient, you have to get over it, you just had surgery, like you're fine, keeps a lot of people from being involved in the community and not just being involved in the community, but facing those feelings that are scratching at the back of their head, right?
Yeah.
Like they're facing the feelings that they're feeling like just behind whatever else they're feeling. And if we can just make space for everyone in whatever way it shows up, I think we could have a lot more collective healing, right?
Yes. I am on board. I could not agree more with that. Yes. There should not be a comparison or this or that or whatever. It's something no one wants to be a part of, but unfortunately we are. So let's figure out how we can come together and make this something that's helpful for anyone who's impacted by cancer. It doesn't matter what the labels are you want to place on it, whatever. How can we all come together? So I really agree with that. And hopefully, there will come a time when it's like that and it won't matter. Someone out there is listening and they've just been told they have cancer. What words of encouragement would you give to this person who is where you once were?
Oh, I would say that you are in a lot more control than you think. It is really important to advocate for your health. And I think when you're faced with a cancer diagnosis, you just want the thing out of you and you just want to do whatever and you just want to get it. That's where I was the first time around. I was just like, okay, just do whatever, take it out. I don't want the cancer in me. And I probably still would have made that same decision, but I may have still gotten a second opinion. I didn't. I was just like, okay, you're going to see me. It's cancer. We're going to take my kidney out. The second time around, my surgeon was terrible. I'm gonna be honest. He was just an awful like person and just dismissed anything I needed and stuff like that. But I did not feel comfortable advocating for myself with him. So I enlisted my partner. I'm like, babe, I am not in an emotional space for me to do this. If you see me shut down, can you please step in? And I would say, going through my experience, I probably wouldn't have done that the first time. I probably would not have asked him the first time. But then going through it, like, I realized, oh no, I'm in control and I could figure out what I need. And I advocated for a second opinion and I've advocated for myself when I knew something was wrong with my body. So I would say, I don't know if it's encouraging as much as just whatever, but I would say we are in control a lot more than we think we are. And that you have a right to advocate for yourself whether that's with your doctor, whether that's with your family, whether that's with work. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be, oh, I want a second opinion. It could be like, hey, I am not feeling okay for visitors right now. I don't want to see your face and I don't need to. But the thing is, we've all been there where we had to manage
Mm-hmm.
other people's
That's the
emotions.
truth.
And so
Yeah.
we get put in this position where it's like they're crying about our cancer, and you're like, what do I do here? But I'm saying you are in a lot more control than you think. This is
Mhm.
happening to you. It has an impact on other people, but it's happening to you. And if you do not want to see your friends, you do not have to see your friends. If you do not want that doctor because they're mean to you or they're dismissive, you find another doctor. Like, I wish I would have done that with my thyroid surgeon. Even if after the surgery, I advocated for myself, I did in the beginning. Even though I had a gut feeling, I'm like, this is not the guy I want to go with. I was like still in that mode of, I just want to get it out. So I wish that I just had that control within me to be like, okay, no, I'm going to put my foot down. I've been through this before, or whatever it may be. But we have a lot more control and we have the right. We are not there to make other people feel better. We're just not. It's not what we're there for. We're there to deal with our crap. Whatever you need to make yourself feel like stronger in that control, do it. Whether that is like turning to art, turning to meditation, turning to faith, turning to kickboxing, turning to bodybuilding, like whatever it is, do it, right? Don't deny yourself that. But like assert your rights, right? Just assert your rights as a human, whether it's like emotional or legal, just assert your rights as a human.
Yeah. I could not agree more. Annamaria, before we wrap up, please tell the audience more about where they can listen to the podcast that you host and where they can find you on social media.
Sure. So, Kidney Cancer Unfiltered can be found on any of your favorite platforms. So Apple Podcasts, I guess Google Podcasts, Spotify. We host at Acast. We're working on season 4 right now, and we're going to have a season 5. Will be next year. So check us out, and you could always go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts to listen to past episodes, past seasons. You can find me on Instagram at Gotcha Scotcha. So that's GOTCHASCACCIA. A lot of people don't know how to pronounce my last name, so I'm like, gotcha, scotcha. It's not one of those fancy Italian last names. It's just hard, like scotcha. So I'm gotcha, scotcha at Instagram. I have 2 Substacks. So one for my One Kidney like coaching and education and research and stuff, and that's the One Kidney Lifting Club on Substack. And then I have one dedicated to my art and writing, which is called The Pleasant Side of Loneliness. So you could find me on Substack. LinkedIn is my name. So if you see my name on here, you would just search me and you will see me. That's really it. Ignore Facebook. I'm on it, but I ignore it. And yeah, so
It's okay. Annamaria, it was such a pleasure talking with you again. And as always, I just appreciate your honesty, openness, and rawness because that's what we need. It's not a fairy tale, it's not pretty. So let's just be honest about what it really is. And I so appreciate that you are willing to do that. So thank you so much.
thank you for giving me the space. I'm so sorry I went over time. I
That's
talked too
okay.
much.
It's okay. That's okay. Thank you, Annamaria. It's been a pleasure.
Have a good one.
You too. Before we end, I would like to give a shout out to the Navigating Cancer Together community and valued listeners. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have enjoyed this episode and you have found it insightful, please share it with someone else. Also, consider subscribing to the show on Apple Podcast and also on Spotify. While you're there, leave a rating and review. That is it for this Wednesday. And until next time, let's keep navigating cancer together. Take care.